fascinated me even before I became an anarchist. And so I know stuff you've done back from like the 90s, and it makes me feel bad that I haven't been following you this closely for the last few months.
Oh yes, no, I've been very busy. It seems very busy indeed. Currently seeking the Libertarian Party nomination, as some of you may or may not know, but it is indeed probably the first campaign. Arguably, it is the first actual real campaign that I've ever really run. Every previous campaign, as a Democrat or Republican, obviously I was neither a Republican or a Democrat as I was running in their primaries, and it was purely a flag of convenience. I was just flying it for something for laughs. But in this particular instance, I have a genuine campaign staff. Got the real 527. We've been doing real fundraising. We've been spending as much money as we can make. I've been attending Libertarian Party state conventions across the country, and have something that I'm trying to sell to the people, if you will. So it's very exciting. So yes, thank you, thank you for following me. So who's all here?
Hello.
Well, other than your campaign staff, it's myself. I go by SO or SO the Free, and Filthy Heretic. That's the name that he goes by. And
Hello.
we run a YouTube channel called Backalley Philosophy,
Oh, you
where
can't hear me.
we make videos about anarchism, particularly from the individualist perspective. Um, Counter economics, agorism, general economic ideas, and essays about metaphysical philosophy.
Damn,
I mean, it's.
sounds
I,
sounds like some serious stuff you got going on there.
I mean, I am personally flattered to hear you say that.
Yeah, I am as well. It's amazing.
Yes, you can quote me on that, of course. Damn.
I got a recording of that. So, anyways, why don't we begin by you telling us a bit about yourself, how you got started, why you wanted to start doing this in the first place, and of course, what changed in the 2020 presidential election that made you realize that you should do more than be your character.
Well, I think it's easier to answer the last question first, maybe, or maybe it's better to ask the last question, the first question last. I'm not really sure which order I should go in. Of course, I'm Vermin Supreme. I am a highly respected political satirist, um, and but that's subject to interpretation and opinion, of course. And I've been running for the office of the presidency or equivalent offices or other offices for over 30 years now. And of course, it has been an opportunity for me to critique the system and use the devices of free ponies and mandatory toothbrushing and secret dental police and dental re-education centers and preventative dental maintenance detention facilities and zombie power and my various imaginary world to talk about real world issues and offer my commentary upon them. And so I've been essentially hammering away at the this very small niche that is the presidential election. And of course, because it is you running for president, which is a beautiful thing. I mean, ultimately, it's the most wonderful self-declarative statement that you can make. Essentially, when you say the magic phrase, "Hi, my name is," I am running for president, you are creating your very own reality. You are creating an actual fact that cannot be dismissed. It cannot be disputed because it is, in fact, a fact. Once you state you're running for president, maybe nobody votes for you. Maybe you don't tell anybody else. Maybe, just your friends know. Maybe nobody votes for you. Maybe you get no money. But nonetheless, you are running for president. And it's a magical phrase. And so I've been using that magic phrase and the power that it gives me for, like I say, some 30 years. and it's just this running for presidency because it's such a small thing, and yet it's a national thing, and it has international implications. And so I've been utilizing a number of simple, elegant, and apparently very effective tools and devices, mostly in by accident. Wearing a rubber boot on your head. I mean, what could be more simple than that? And there's a certain elegance to it, but it's been extremely effective in allowing me to amplify my First Amendment free speech voice exponentially. It's allowed me to communicate practically directly with millions and millions of people across the planet, and spread my word through media interviews the world over, and earned media coverage. So there is that. The mere fact that simply by dressing funny and talking about the ridiculous things, I've come this far. I've become this thing, which is just so much bigger than this particular meat bag that you see here. And I am literally use my picture and add words, or use snippets of my video, or and make songs, and make gifs, and make or is it gifs? Is it gifs or gifs? I can never remember. And they make okay, boomer, whatever you say. And then there's just an amazing wealth of creative content. I'm not so much a content creator. Instead, I am more of the subject of a lot of content. And in this type of situation, in interviews, it becomes a sort of a collaborative experience where we are here together, creating content together. You by asking questions, and me by spouting off. And as I'd mentioned earlier, in every other previous campaign, I've been using the New Hampshire primary for maximum media exposure, because it is the first in the nation primary, and as such, it's sort of ground zero in that every damn last candidate who's running for president will be there. They have their own campaign headquarters, they have their campaign staff, they have campaign buses, they have campaign events. In the last several weeks before the main event, they will be crisscrossing and ping-ponging and bouncing all around the state. And it's very simple and easy to go up there and interact with them and head them off at the pass, and ask them important questions about weather domes and ponies and zombies and things. And there's just such the media saturation is there. And it took me many years just to make it past the editors. Of course, I was treating the media people as a very valued audience, because that's what they do. They pay attention to what's going on. And then, of course, I went viral in 2012 at the lesser known candidates debate, when I glitter bombed homophobe anti-abortionist Randall Terry, because Jesus told me to make him gay. And shortly after that, I became a meme. And 2016 was very interesting, because that was traditionally over the years, I was lucky to get a picture on the AP Wire, and maybe a mention or two on NPR, and a few scattered things here and there. But when I went viral, it seemed that the whole world immediately knew who I was, and I received coverage in pretty much every media source that in existence. And so I've been apparently riding that, or it's been riding me, or I've become some sort of celebrity or something. And so this election year, I was actually approached by some libertarians. Desiree Lindsay, my campaign manager, essentially broached the possibility of actually running for the Libertarian Party nomination. And after some consideration, I said, sure, yeah, why the hell not? And that's how this particular phase of the adventure began. And like I say, it's a very different thing. It's I still have total leeway to do whatever I want to do, pretty much within reason. But nonetheless, this is the first time where I've had to have a lot of practical considerations and strategic considerations. And for example, up at the New Hampshire primary, I've gotten a lot of my media attention and notoriety from being on the Republican or Democratic ticket up there. I've come in third one year. I came in fourth another year, beat a few real candidates. And so I like to do that quite a bit. However, this year, at first it was because Bill Weld left the Libertarian Party, and he was going to be on the Republican ticket in New Hampshire. So I thought to myself, under any normal previous year, it wouldn't matter if I had lost to Bill Weld. I would still have bragging rights. But, because he's so reviled in the Libertarian Party, that I couldn't afford to lose to him. So there was that consideration. And then, of course, the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire is sponsoring their very own mail-based ballot primary, not state-run. They're self-financing it. And they are not accepting fusion candidates. And so I could not run as a Democrat or Republican and take part in the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire primary. And so, there's some real practical considerations. Also, there was the possibility that there might be a state or two that has sore loser laws, which state that if you ran as a candidate under one party, that you could not run under another party than general. And so if I were to run up against that, that would affect my ability to deliver the 5% of the general election that I am hoping to be able to deliver to the Libertarian Party if they do indeed choose me as their nominee. Is that an answer?
Yeah, I think so. It's quite a bit to go over, and I can see that it's been quite a journey.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, so you want to say something?
No, I if you weren't done, please continue.
No, I'm just thinking, like, excuse me for a second, so would you mind saying something? I'm feeling a little dizzy
Okay.
right now.
Well, what I was going to ask, just my general question, in response to all of that was one of the main things that I've found fascinating about you, since I've known about you, Vermin, is the fact that you've used the presidential ticket as a platform to bolster a message against the political system. But now um, that I actually have become state skeptical myself, before I just saw it as an act, but now I see what you're doing and I respect it. And I have a couple of things to ask about that, but as of right now, I guess I'll just propose my first question. So, in the 2020 run, are you actually seeking to achieve any sort of policy goals by running? Is that your sort of approach by utilizing the Libertarian Party? Or is this just is this the same as every other ticket you've run under? You're just still critiquing the electoral system and the state?
Well, yes, some of both. In fact, I guess, I have pledged, because I have joined the Libertarian Party, because, and I originally come from sort of a left anarchist background, pretty much. However, upon examining the Libertarian Party platform, I realized that there is so much there that I essentially agree with. I mean, it covers a lot of my core values and understanding in regards to being against intervention in foreign wars and against the police state and against surveillance state and respecting the rights of the individual and maximizing free trade and just all of these things that allowed me to sort of dovetail my beliefs into it. And so as a candidate for the nomination for the LP, I am hoping to spread, make the LP platform essentially my own. I mean, yes, there is the ponies, the zombies, the critique of the duopoly and all of that included, because of course that's the hook. That's sort of what it's the magic of the boot that will bring all the young voters to the LP's yard, if you will. And so I'm hoping to be able to use my platform, if they choose me to do so, to present the party's platform, because I think that's only right and fair that if one is a candidate for a political party, then it is. I mean, you have to rep that party. I don't always shill for a political party, but when I do, it is one whose platform I certainly have a solid affinity for. And so, I believe that I'm, because I have this, this character and this universe of images and concepts and things, I believe that I can, help, do all sorts of using the character, educational shorts and snippets and in describing what the platform is and what libertarians stand for. And, I believe that I'm pretty well positioned to bring a lot of young people into the party as we go along, and certainly help dispel some of the more negative stereotypes that regular everyday people have about libertarians, and like that. Show us for the sharing, caring lot that we really are.
So interesting. So I guess my sort of take on your strategy, or at least initially, is that you were using the sort of the political stage and elections as a means to draw attention to yourself, and with that attention and publicity, like, sorry if that carries a negative connotation, I wasn't intending to convey one, but by drawing that sort of audience for yourself because of what you've done on stage, you're then able to draw people's attention to ideas and concepts and sort of direct action tactics, and really show them how much they actually can change the system outside of the electoral process. But the media would never talk about that. But you created this sort of image for yourself so that you baited the media essentially into inadvertently drawing attention to something they'd never otherwise talk about. So basically, what I'm asking, is that still your position, or are you a actual believer in the party system at this point?
Well, I believe your analysis is accurate. I would agree with that. Um, and the Libertarian Party is a slightly different animal. I mean, essentially, it's a party that welcomes anarchists. I mean, it is a party that, in and of itself, is more or less against the state. I mean, a lot of the people in the party are full-on anti-statist. Now, is there, either an irony or a contradiction or a hypocrisy in that it is, a political party? Yes, there is, sure there is. I mean, there is that tension, but the fact is, I believe that it's really the only main party, or the only party that's specifically trying to make the government go away, if you will. So there is that, and of course, as an anarchist, and I'm also pragmatic and somewhat realist, and understand that we are entrenched in this the system the way it is, and it's trying to affect change and make change is always very difficult. But it's good to organize against it on every level that is practical to do so, and playing within the political environment, it's not inherently a bad thing, I don't think, especially in local politics, and I think that's where libertarians have most of their success. I think the presidential run is primarily a symbolic one, and I'm trying to make the most of that, and I'm trying to convince because a lot is in the framing. I think for the party, can they get can a serious party put up someone who's perceived to be a joke candidate and not be perceived to be a joke party? And I think that's where I'm getting a lot of blowback from, and a lot of opposition from people who are very much afraid that if they were to put up myself as a candidate, that they would never be able to live it down. But I personally maintain that it's very much in the framing. It could be framed in a way that they could put out statements and just say simply to the effect, we are the Libertarian Party, and we are a very serious party, and we have very serious ideas, and we're trying to accomplish things. However, the duopoly and the presidential election, electoral politics in general has risen to the level of a joke, and we think it's a joke. And here's Vermin Supreme. Here's your joke. So I think that's doable, and like I say, maybe.
Okay, fair enough.
Mind if
So,
I interject with something real quick?
okay, of course.
Yeah. So I like that you brought up the idea of you possibly being a joke candidate, because I have to ask the question, is it really more of a joke for Vermin Supreme to run than for Donald Trump, who implemented tariffs and banned certain gun accessories that look scary? Are you really more of a joke than Elizabeth Warren, who wants to create another item into the federal budget that's going to be as large as federal tax revenue in 1 year?
Well, they're jokes. They may be jokes, but they're not funny. They're not. There's no humor. There's no entertainment value in that. Whereas my joke has always been very funny, I think, but it's always been serious. I mean, it's a serious joke, and I'm very serious about what I'm presenting, and and it's a strange thing to have been warning people against the clampdown and the collapse and all of these things, and then just sticking around long enough to see them come to pass. Very, very interesting and curious and scary, of course, because these are pretty scary times. And I think that's another attractive feature about my possible campaign. I think that's one of the attractive things about my campaign in general, is that that I'm making so much fun of it all, of everything, and people very much appreciate that. People, I feel, are probably feeling powerless or overwhelmed, just tuning out of it because it's just there's too much noise, and there's too much crazy shit to even follow. And I think I operate from the level that I have actual constituents. I believe that I have an actual base, and I do it for my constituents, because I know that they appreciate what I'm doing. They have a very good understanding of what I'm doing, and they enjoy it. So I do it for these people, for my audience.
Of course. And obviously, there's no punchline to Medicare for all or whatever ridiculous program they come up with now. I mean,
Well,
there is a punchline, but it's at our expense.
I have been working on Pony Care for all, universal Pony Care for all. You get one apple per pony per day, a sugar cube if you're nice. Unfortunately, if you do break your leg, we will have to put you down.
All right, and I also have
Of
another
course.
idea I want to pitch to you. Uh,
Yeah.
I was talking with some friends before, and we came up with this idea of being able to capture the circular reasoning of statists and use it to create green energy for generations to come. We call it the circular reasoning reactor.
Ha ha ha. Nice.
Also,
I don't think it's going to replace zombie power anytime soon, but
I
I
mean,
like it.
why do here's the thing about the free market though. We can have both at once and we can compete with each other. Zombie power is obviously incredibly viable, as is the circular reasoning reactor. Now, what we can do, of course, is point to people that the reason that we don't have circular reasoning energy or zombie energy is because the state does everything it can to protect its cronies in the oil industry, as well as to protect its own interests through petrodollar recycling. Why don't we talk
Absolutely.
about that?
Very, very specific platform plank in the Libertarian Party platform regarding energy is, in fact, of course, that governments should not subsidize or favor anyone over the other, and that should give us a fair and running start.
And I have my own suggestion in proposing universal pony care for all. Make sure that everybody knows that universal pony care is drafted by the CEO of Dole. But anyway, so a serious question I was going to ask. I guess I'll go ahead and give you a free sound bite. So, you described yourself as a left anarchist in the left anarchist tradition. So,
I'd say that's where I cut my teeth, and so I definitely have an affinity. I mean, that's sort of where I come from. But yes.
so I was just going to go ahead and ask, what are some of the ideas which inspired your sort of genuine sense?
Well, I guess like many people when they we read stuff when we're younger and it makes an impression. And I'd say for me that was Peter Kropotkin and Mutual Aid, I suppose, and some Emma Goldman and sort of their critiques of the systems. And I think the attractive thing for me and one of the guiding ongoing messages that I've always been trying to point out to people, whether from the left or the libertarian perspective, is that ultimately, if we are to, in any way, shape, or form, be able to abolish or what I find simpler, disengage from the state, if we're going to disengage ourselves from the government, we really need to be able to pick up that slack. We need to be able to create alternative systems that will help the people and help the people that need the help when they need the help, whether that whatever form that takes. I mean, it's not inconsistent with I mean, the self-reliance and the self-responsibility. But I've always believed that it extends to our neighbors, because I mean, if we, from what I can glean, it's decentralization is a very important part of these things. And sort of, I mean, I remember a time when every little town had all these little neighborhoods, and every neighborhood was pretty much its own little self-contained area. Everybody had their own little grocery store. Every little neighborhood had their own hardware store. They had all the things that they needed right there. I mean, if people didn't have to hop in the car and drive down the highway to go to the mall or go to the Walmart, or because everything was sort of handy. Different times. I think I'm off on a tangent. What were we talking about now?
I was just asking you what some of the ideas which inspired your personal philosophy were. But no, I think you answered it pretty well, unless you had more to say about it.
No, I think that's it. Sort of in a nutshell.
All right.
And of course, I mean, just the fact that the state is our sworn enemy. It's a terrible thing that how can a entity try and run your life? How can they own you? How can they have so many rules and regulations, and how can they threaten your life, and how can they tell you that if they don't do this, they're going to kill you or jail you, or I think that's just sort of intuitive. I mean, yeah.
Sadly, people have been indoctrinated for generations hundreds of generations even to not only accept it as legitimate, but the only method by which they can figure this out. However, I think the overwhelming majority of people do understand it. It's just a question of how you frame it. I would think the overwhelming majority of people, and I keep using that phrase a lot, would agree that everybody should be free to voluntarily associate.
Indeed. And I think it's it's a conceptual exercise, and I think I've been trying to do that with the the pony-based economy. I think that has really helped people stretch their minds a little bit. Because once you start talking about ponies as currency, you sort of have to wonder, well, why are we using the currency we are using? What's backing that currency? You start talking about the Pony Federal Reserve and all of these things, and I like to think that people start to throw into question, especially when I give them the leading questions. Where is your pony? Whereas the government is spending so much money on all these foreign adventures, and and people have broken it down. They've done the math. I mean, the math is there. Yes, for the amount of tax money that you're being jacked up, of course the government could give you your pony. Where is it? How come you ain't got it?
It's still in the Federal Reserve, right next to where my gold is.
It's a golden pony. Stay golden. Stay gold, pony boy.
But yeah, that's sort of just another thing that I was going to say that gets into another is that not only does everyone, I think, at their core, whether or not they even realize it, agree with libertarian anarchist ideals, they practice it on a regular basis. And this is I don't know if you're familiar with the works of Samuel Edward Konkin, but he probably demonstrated this best, where it's literally impossible to engage in any sort of human action because essentially any way to do so is illegal by according to the state's legislative fiat. So what I was going to ask you, though, is more I think that you're promoting a great message that the only real way to affect the sort of socio-political order and the political system is through subversive direct action, setting up local or horizontal counter economies and actually producing wealth in a network which the state can't monitor or track. Would you agree that that's a more effective means of actually achieving demonstrable change?
I think so. I mean, I think one of the things that I very much enjoyed about my concept of social anarchy was that it existed. It exists, right here and right now. I mean, we are engaging in an activity that is completely free from the state fucking with us, arguably. And, we have a goal, and we are cooperating, and we are voluntarily coming together to make this goal happen. I mean, in this case, it's a very simple thing, making an interview for a podcast for distribution. But, it extends to, the Food Not Bombs, people coming together to share food with people on the street, or anarchist bookstore collectives, or even food cooperatives, where the people, buy shares and just sort of, make it happen. So yeah, that's very much one of the things that I do enjoy about anarchy and anarchism, is that we can practice it in real time, in the real world, without the government interference. And of course, I came to also understand that anarcho-capitalism also occurs in the real world, in the form of the black market, I suppose, primarily, and the gray market. And so there is a thriving underground economy. I mean, there is a parallel functioning economy in the United States that totally exists without the parameter um, of the government. So there.
The inevitable conclusion is that the state or the society is largely propped up by the black market. I mean, if you really think about it, literally all trade is gray or black market in some respects because every vendor is violating antitrust laws. I'm sure you've heard this before that someone who is buying or selling at a higher price than everyone else is engaged in price gouging. Someone who sells at a lower price is engaged in cutthroat competition, and someone who sells at the same price as everyone else is engaged in collusion and cartelization. So in that respect, like the only way you can engage in any commerce ever is through gray and black markets. And even then, like any interaction, the overwhelming majority of things that we're doing today, sure, you can point to some way that the government coerces, controls, and forces us to do things against our will, but the conversations that we're having right now, the conversations that we have with our coworkers, with our friends, with our family, the technology that we use, the economic practices that we engage in, we don't need some board, some alphabet soup agency to direct us to do one thing or another. Fact of the matter is, like, there's all sorts of things we do all the time, not because we're afraid of going to jail, but because we want to do it. I mean, I think the overwhelming majority of us don't want to be aggressed against, yet for some reason we think that the only way to protect us from being aggressed against is to have someone aggress against us. What kind of twisted logic is that?
That's crazy.
I know, right? Who would have thought that getting a bunch of sociopaths in one room would actually be completely unnecessary to having a civil society? It's so weird.
And I didn't know if you were going to say anything or not, so I'm sorry if I cut you off. But here's the other thing. Um, Filthy earlier brought up that a lot of people are indoctrinated, and to some extent that's true. But it's more the fact that a lot of people are presented early on through government education or the media, these sort of constructed narratives which are uncritically presented as if that's just the way things function. And it's remarkably easy to point out how illogical or how these don't stand up to lived reality. And this is probably one of the best ways in which that's the case. This idea, well, people need rulers in order for society to be organized. Most social interaction occurs on a sort of local peer to peer basis. And on top of that, people associate in pursuit of their own interests. So, this idea that hundreds of millions of people being dictated around by a few hundred sociopaths who have an interest that's completely divorced from the people that they're organizing, so to speak, that can produce better results for society. It's just on its face, it's wrong. And I think when most people are presented with that and their sort of their view of how society is constructed is challenged, that alone I think is enough to make people state skeptical.
Subversion, man. It's all about the subversion.
Well, exactly, and that's a sort of where I'm going with that is, you know, this is great for political messaging and to bring attention to yourself, but I don't know. I would just personally argue that achieving real change can only really occur on a counter economic basis, because the political system as it exists has, for one thing, it's sort of structurally incentivized to reinforce itself, the state is, and to expand its influence over society. And I think one of the sort of destructive things which the prospect of achieving change through elections does is it creates this idea that for one, it creates this idea that there exists competition within state agencies, even though they're all funded and managed by the same people. And on top of that, it creates this idea that material interests and philosophical perspectives are intermingled, and that in order to have your interests met, you need to force your views and you need to force this onto other people. So it creates a sort of internal antagonism between other people of different material preferences in society. So I just I appreciate what you're doing. Don't get me wrong. I just think that I would just argue that counter economics is the way to go. So I guess I
Oh,
would.
I will not argue that there are a lot of things that are more effective than what I do. That is for sure.
So
Um,
all
you know,
right.
I am the candidate of no hope, no change, and bitter disappointment. Um, so yes, there is that for sure. I'm totally down with it, with that argument. I'm not weighing one against the other. I'm just saying that I do what I do because I've been doing it for so long, and I enjoy it, and other people do too. And I think it is effective on some levels.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I was just going to ask you though, do you think you're going to start promoting these sort of subversive approaches to politics?
Well, I chime in my 2 cents every chance I get. I mean, that's sort of one of the concerns that all my speaking would be talking about ponies and zombies, and no, that's just the hook. And I think that anybody who's seen any of my long form interviews such as this one, the character is broken. I mean, I'm certainly not in character. I'm just talking about things, and I believe that I'm able to present all these various talking points to the various media. Different bits and drabs here and there, but I'm always trying to slip a seriously subversive message into any time I talk to anybody, really.
And of course, the best part is that you're going to have people who look on the internet, maybe some Gen Z high schoolers, who be like, "Oh, this Vermin Supreme guy is pretty funny. Let me look up some more of his contents for laughs." And of course, they hear you memeing about zombies and ponies, and then they hear the part where you say, "And the reason that we don't have zombies or ponies is because they keep the ponies in the Federal Reserve. The government prevents zombies from being put into hamster wheels because they want to protect the petrodollar." There's a very serious message
Yeah.
that people are getting from
In
that.
fact, just at the convention we were at, I mean, I just did the debate in Florence, South Carolina, just the other day, this weekend, and just two kids drove up from Charlotte. They drove 2 hours away. They were just young kids, and they actually thought that it was going to be a debate that was involving ponies and zombies. But after the debate, they were totally turned on to the political understanding of what was being presented on that stage, the libertarian perspective of the night, and they wanted more, wanted to know more. And when I was at the unconvention in Omaha last season, a whole bunch of kids showed up from some high school, and I took them to every last vendor in the hall so that they could be proselytized to properly. And, yeah, no, there's definitely that draw, and that's certainly what I'm part of my big sell. And if I happen, even if I'm not the nominee, maybe I could still try and bring more people into the party. But just the sheer fact, I mean, you have to, I mean, imagine if the Libertarian Party does indeed make their nominee. I mean, I get a lot of press, they get a fair amount of press, but together, I mean, it seems as if though it would be absolutely irresistible. I mean, every last outlet would want to know what the fuck is going on. What is up with the Libertarian Party's heads? Why are they putting up Vermin? And then we could tell them why.
We're also at an interesting point where I don't know if you're familiar with this, but in 2016, the campaign specifically, we had Google search inquiries for things like voluntarism, anarcho-capitalism, agorism, just general like libertarian topics. They skyrocketed because obviously Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were not people's not only first choice of candidates but also last choice of candidates. People were very disenfranchised from the political system, and I can seriously imagine that in 2020, with whoever the Democrats put up, and I'm almost certain that Joe Biden's going to steal the election somehow, and that Donald Trump being put on again, there's going to be a lot more people who are going to be disenfranchised and are going to be looking at alternative political narratives. Towards this end, I strongly suspect that this coming election cycle is going to be a tremendous opportunity to proselytize people away from mainstream political master narratives and towards, well, self-empowerment, self-reliance, and just generally anti-state narratives.
Indeed, indeed, the world is open. I mean, essentially, there is 3.9 million high school kids graduate every year. I mean, so that means the past 2 or 3 years. I mean, that's 8 or 12 million kids. There's 17 million kids in college. You start adding those numbers together, that's like 25 million young people. I would just need to get 1 out of 4 of them to vote for me in order to get 5% for the LP. So yeah, there is a potential of a tsunami, a tidal wave, if you will, of memification. It could go super viral, and yeah, I think we could bring it to the masses, and I think it could be a thing. I mean, fuck yeah. Quite frankly, I could easily see that if I were the nominee, that people would start upvoting me to get me into that debate against Donald Trump and Biden. Wouldn't that be something? Yes, it would.
That would be absolutely amazing, and I think I would pay to see you debate Donald Trump and Joe Biden on the same stage. Although I have a
Well,
feeling I already know what Joe Biden's going to do.
one step at a time. And of course, you can contribute at verminsupreme2020.com. All generous contributions will be spent on legitimate campaign expenses because we are an actual 527. It's called Pony Up for Vermin Supreme. Registered with the FEC, registered with the IRS, and we do the quarterly filings. And of course, we are required to spend an account for all that money and spend it on things that specifically relate to my campaign, which does, of course, include pony rentals. Fact. The more you give me, the more I can spend.
Oh, that is great.
So yes, it's very wonderful this year. It's because normally the Venn diagram is I'm waving my right hand over here. This is Vermin Supreme's character, Vermin Supreme, and his imaginary world of zombies and Narnia invasions and all that. And over here, this circle that I'm waving here, that's reality. And they usually don't intersect too much. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm a real person with the real name Vermin Supreme, and I do get on the ballots, and I have come in 3rd and 4th, and have raised money in the past. But it is overlapping a lot more these days. I can tell you that.
And I'm sure you're familiar with the Clown World meme.
Which one's that?
Basically, the observation that the world is becoming increasingly ridiculous, and therefore the best response to an insane world is just to laugh at the joke.
Well, I would agree with that. And as Hunter S. Thompson used to say, when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro.
That sounds about right.
So that was his. And yeah, I mean, as I say, Idiocracy was it was supposed to be entertainment. It wasn't supposed to be an instruction manual.
I was under the impression that Idiocracy was a documentary from the future.
Idiocracy is just Los Angeles in 20 years. They
20?
got the text wrong. It said it's the year 2500. It's actually the year 2050.
Oh, that's
Have you all read my book, by the way?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I'll hold it up for you here. This is it. It's called iPony, Blueprint for a New America. It's available on the internet, and it's got a lot of good pictures in it. and it's a story about a future long after a Vermin Supreme presidency, after zombie power fuels the nation, after everybody's received their ponies, after time travel is used every day, and after the secret dental police have set up checkpoints every couple hundred yards. It's a warning from the people of the future to you, the people of their past, your present, that Vermin Supreme is a madman and must be stopped. So, yeah, you might want to check that out. It's a book. If you like books, it's definitely a book.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'll probably either, I don't know, buy it from an independent source or I'll torrent it.
There you go. Good luck. I don't think it's digitized yet. Maybe somebody scanned it by now. You can never tell.
Yeah, most of them get digitized pretty quickly. Most of them you don't even have to torrent. Most of them are just in PDF format on some blog site.
Do you have any idea how much money I spent on textbooks during my 4 years in college? Like $25.
That's not bad.
No, it's
Well,
not.
it should be. That's very reasonable.
It's yeah, because guess what? I just downloaded everything. There's like
Yeah,
one book I wasn't able to download, which is what $25 came in, but that was basically like some little pamphlet thing.
What are you saying? Textbooks are theft or something?
No, I'm saying that I'm saying that copyright's theft.
Yeah.
It's
Hey, now don't get me started on that. I have a service trademark on my name. um, Here, let me read you a little bit of my book here, if you like.
oh, by all means.
sounds great.
Okay, here we go. There were harsh political realities when President for Life Vermin the First took office. At the time of his ascent to the White House, there were over 300 million Americans in America's previous borders. At the time, there were only 200,000 ponies in the whole damn country. It was a recipe for civil unrest. Those were not just political realities, those were realities.
Just really quick, I'm going to go AFK for a second. I'll be right back.
All right, I should keep reading this. There was a very stark choice to make. On the table, would it be the mass execution of some 299,700,000 Americans in order to achieve proper pony human parity, or something else? His misspoken claim during his inauguration to faithfully execute the American people was sounding visionary. It is certainly true that such a mass execution would create jobs. It would also lessen the country's dependence on foreign oil. It would be good for the environment. Although there were some drawbacks to consider, mostly they were merely questions of ethics and public relations. During this time of widespread civil unrest, all options were on the table. The Dental High Command was put on high alert. The dental re-education camps were readied. Homeland Dental Security coordinated with the nation's dental police departments. The militarization of America's dental police forces had been a great idea that it was about to pay off in lower incidence of gum disease nationwide. There were riots in the streets of numerous cities. Pulsating water pick cannons knocked rioters right off their feet and knocked the plaque right off of their teeth. The population was demanding their ponies that were nowhere in sight. It was a time of heightened international tensions. No one would have blamed Tyrant Supreme if he had ordered the National Dental Guard to carry out a full-scale massacre of the civilian population. It was high time, actually. The veneer of civility that had protected Americans from such real political unrest for quite some time was wearing thin. The quaint and oft-repeated notion that it can't happen here was truly just a lack of imagination. Thank you. That's
I came I came back in for the last 30 seconds of it, and it sounds amazing.
It was amazing. I was here for the whole thing. Although it's unfortunate because I'm reminded of several stories that I saw in the news just not long ago. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with is it Poe's law,
Oh,
the one where reality reflects satire.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I saw a story not long ago. I think it's actually earlier today on Zero Hedge about how scientists like 11 yeah, here it is. 11,000, I just have it in front of me, are 11,000 climate scientists are proposing the final solution to climate change in that they want to they're saying it must be stabilized, it being the population, and ideally gradually reduced within a framework that ensures social integrity.
Yes.
So,
Which is just a nice euphemistic way of saying that we're going to start killing children. Remember a couple weeks ago when Eat the Babies to Save the Planet was a joke?
Oh, ha ha ha. Oh goodness, those LaRouches, they're so fucking funny. Oh my. That was the best LaRouche prank in a long time, though. I gotta say, that was so good.
yeah, it was, but
It was, but now it's real, and I think it's terrifying now.
Didn't they do the one against Hillary Clinton early on in her campaign in '08 or so? I think it was, and it was very simple. It was just like the guy just started yelling out, "Iron my shirt."
Uh,
Do you, do you remember that one?
I,
I
um,
don't.
I think so. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, a lot of people have done that with Hillary and Bill, so
Yeah,
I guess I'll look it up.
yeah. It was a classic. Got a lot of play at the time.
It's it's just a little unnerving. Satire reflects reality, and this is becoming increasingly so. And this is, I think, that the circling back here, this is what I think makes the clown world meme so resonant with young people that they see the world just going completely insane, where respected scientists, 11,000 of them, are unironically proposing, at the bare minimum, mass sterilization in order to solve a problem that they can't even prove exists.
And have you heard recently? That's, I mean, that's crazy, but this is not necessarily a news story, but people keep talking about revenue or the problem of funding whichever position. Well, have you heard that for every $1 that the U.S. government collects, $2.71 are spent over 5 transactions with that $1. So the government is essentially operating at a net loss innately because of how expansive it is.
Well, there are a lot of bureaucrats involved. It is a big employer. Going to have to retrain a lot of bureaucrats. Yes.
I mean, I'm not terribly worried about what's going to happen after they're out of a job. It's sort of like asking the
Well,
question.
won't you think of the bureaucrats?
I'm more
Please, please think of the bureaucrats.
Of course. And I have thought about them. And then I thought about what I was going to have for dinner tonight, and I realized that that was more important. It's like asking a question, "Oh, what are the plantation owners going to do after slavery?" Well, won't someone please think of the plantation owners?
Which was an actual question news media back in the late 1850s was proposing. Another funny narrative in the sort of arguments attempting to justify slavery. Um, if you really like, you could find these essays pretty easily. There was one notably published in 1859, I think it was, where essentially they were just using the exact framing like Bernie Sanders would use in order to justify um, government programs against free association. and applying that to slavery. Like, these firms, these private firms are exploiting these people, and if they're owned by slave masters, I'm not making this up. You can find this pretty easily. I might have to look up the title of the article because I can't remember it off the top of my head, but something that everyone certainly should read because it draws a terrifying parallel between arguments the state's always used for itself and how it tries to justify itself.
State. Ooh. Cool. So we're an hour in. How long are we supposed to be going on for?
I actually don't know.
I didn't have a plan for it either.
I don't know. I was sort of thinking it'd be an hour, so I don't know.
That's usually how long we stream, but I don't know. At least for me, I got most of my questions out of the way. I had one more, which is essentially, if we don't have anything else, this will just be the last question. But what I was going to ask, it's regarding your advertising strategy, and this is something, this is something which I'd, sort of recognizes your advertising strategy works in that it draws the attention of the media, but the second part of that strategy, how it even how you've sort of internalized it, and I would agree, is that it's supposed to draw people's attention towards a sort of cohesive subversive counter narrative to what justifies political rule and the current establishment. Well, the problem there is that if you were to actually research you, you just find stuff about your character. It's not even really clear. You haven't really made it as clear what exactly the messages you're trying to convey are. And I've spoken with people I know about you, and sort of the impression that everyone I know seems to have of you is that you're a comedian, or that you serve as somebody to go to if they believe in the legitimacy of the political system, but are just making a protest vote or whatever, like, the sort of nonsensical concept behind that. Well, so I guess I'm just asking you, are you concerned about that, or do you have any ideas for how to possibly change that?
Well, I suppose that that is a somewhat accurate assessment. Sure. And I suppose in the past, I haven't been, that concerned because I think it, obviously it operates on different levels. I mean, the satire in and of itself, speaks a whole bunch of what I'm trying to say. And a lot of people don't get it. And I like that they just think it's funny. But a lot of people do get it, I think. But yes, in particular for my current incarnation and current mission of promoting libertarian ideals, I certainly do indeed hope to be more proficient in getting across the message, if you will, I suppose. And yes, I think that's a I'll have to examine that strategy and give it a whole lot more consideration. And thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, no problem. Like, I'll give you a successful example, or something which I think has proven to be more successful, of the strategy which you're employing. Were you following the story last year of Defense Distributed, Cody Wilson, and their the creation of the first 3D printable gun?
Yes, I saw some of that.
Well, the point of that was actually, a lot of people take that as a win for gun rights, but actually, that was intended to be an advertisement for sort of DIY production and actually self-reliant manufacturing and speculative networking. and he used guns as an issue to advertise that because he knew that if they made a 3D printable gun, that would draw the media's attention, and it would get the media constantly fear mongering about it because the media would think that they're playing to one of their narratives, which is the fear monger about guns. But in talking about it, they advertised the efficiency and security that comes with that sort of model of trade and production. So and there are other examples, but I suppose what I'm getting at though is I don't know. I have a lot of respect for you, so it feels it's difficult to sort of make a criticism, but I suppose
I'm open to criticism. You know,
okay,
as a project and as a person, sure, why not?
okay. Well, just what I'm getting at, I guess, is you could do a better job inherently tying your subversive direct action strategies with your sort of campaigning message, or I don't know, like stitch a patch onto your shirt that has like the Agora Anarchy Action symbol on it, or
Well,
I don't know. That's
did I tell you we're having an armed pony parade on November 15th?
no, but
No, I
that
don't know
sounds
anything about
great.
this.
Well, we are. It's in up in Concord, New Hampshire. It's the last day of filing at the State House, and so there is a libertarian based bar up there, Area 23, and we will be having an armed pony parade across the town of Concord to the State House. With a little bit of luck, I'm not totally hopeful we'll be able to bring the armed ponies into the State House. I don't really see that happening, but you never know. So that will be very, very exciting.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. And of
I'll,
course,
I'll try and nail it. I'll try and nail the message down.
sounds
More guns, more ponies.
And just to add on to what Esso said, and kind of reiterating on a point I made earlier, you really have an excellent platform with which to launch these subversive narratives. People might ask you to come onto the news or come onto the podcast because, hey, Vermin Supreme is such a joke. But you frame your ideas as just sort of like, hey, the reason we don't have zombie power or circular reasoning reactors is because of the state. Well, the reason you don't have ponies is because they're being held at the Federal Reserve. Why is that? Why aren't we talking about that? And you can begin a discussion, a very serious discussion, using that as a launching platform. And I think that's the kind of thing that's both going to trick the media into believing that they're serving their narratives while at the same time using their platform against them. It's the ultimate form of subversion.
Damn Skippy. I'm all over it.
Excellent.
Thank
so
you.
I think
Thank you, Filthy. Thank you, SO.
You're
No
welcome.
Thank you all. Now, sure are a lot of Desiree Lindsay's here tonight. Am I right?
Well, I
I
mean,
know.
how's the it looks like your cloning project has been overwhelming success. I wonder.
We call them clonies.
Ah,
clonies.
so how do you know which one's the original, Desiree?
I think the Big D, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean,
Not the one
usually
today.
standard procedure is to check the belly button. Clones usually don't have belly buttons,
All right.
but I don't know. I mean, hey, that should be something you should be adding to your
It's all right
campaign.
here in my new book, Blueprint for a New America.
Yeah, be sure to check that out. I know that I certainly will.
Oh yeah.
Most definitely.
Great
It's
book.
also available at the merch store at the on the website at https://verminsupreme2020.com.
I wonder if I should make a video doing a very serious review of a very tongue-in-cheek book.
We like reviews, sure. I think it's a
Yeah,
it's a good
people-
story.
Our
They have
audience
to.
would probably watch it.
Yeah.
Audiobook coming soon, I'm sure.
Well, we could. I don't know how. Which one of us would be able to do an audiobook reading?
Me, because I sound the most like Ben Stein.
Okay, fair enough. And
Yeah.
I have a tendency to trip over my words a lot.
Oh
But
yeah, gotta watch out for that. Look out for that word. Boom.
oh, that's nothing. You should see my recordings. I have to cut out at least like a third of it because I'm always just. But anyways, yeah.
You,
So were you gonna say
I was
something?
just gonna say, yeah, I was gonna say you ought one of these days you ought to like record yourself recording and then show people what it's like. I know that I intend on doing that at some point.
I think what I'll do is the next video essay I'll make, I'll cut out all of the parts where I trip over my words and I'll just put them into their own recording. And it's not going to be like the full video, but it'll be like the parts that I cut out. And well, yeah, that'll
Sounds
probably be
good.
funny.
You ever have any trouble with thinking of what to say or tripping over your words, Vermin?
Not too often. I've got to a point where I can sort of continue talking without really thinking about it or know what I'm saying and just know that I'm totally killing time and with no content of any import whatsoever. I guess I learned to do that on the stage, doing introductions to bands and things like that, where you're just sort of killing time and you just start talking and it doesn't really matter what you say. You're just, as long as you're saying something and you have the people's attention. It's so not too often. Occasionally though.
All right. Well, anyways, I think we should start wrapping this up. So, thank you again, Mr. Supreme, for coming on and talking to us. I mean, it was an honor, honestly.
It
I'd like to
was.
thank you. This was a very interesting experimental format. It was I think it turned into more of a straight up. I mean, you guys are on your same podcast, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
So our
cool.
our channel is Backalley Philosophy, and you can check out some of my personal older content on Filthy Heretic, which was my YouTube channel. It's still up, but
Okay, it
yeah,
actually sounds familiar.
Yeah, we merged channels, which by the way, YouTube has the algorithms have been just hell to our channel because we actually push a subversive narrative. So, uh, Vermin, if you could give us a shout out, that would be amazing.
When you send me the link, I'll certainly put up the links to this interview and anything else you got interesting. Sure.
let me pull up the Backalley Philosophy channel. I'll put it in the chat. I'll put the link in the chat.
Okay. Cool.
One moment.
But yeah, I getting the chance to actually talk to you about your political strategy and just sort of what I've been observing for all these years, I can't describe the feeling. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, ultimately, it's been freeform. This year is definitely it's a different animal. I mean, I've to have so many different people working on different aspects of the campaign. Having the little bits of things going on here and there that I don't even know about, and opening myself to people's contributions and their suggestions, and sort of letting me know where I should go and telling me what to do, and having handlers and all of these things. It's been a very different type of experience for me.
Hey, you're no
I
longer
will say
traveling.
that.
You're no longer traveling through hyperspace.
Oh man, sorry, not even on that little strip of trim back there.
It's a little strip of hyperspace. I guess you've arrived at your destination then.
Here we go. Whoa!
This is great.
It's amazing. But anyways, yeah, we should start wrapping this up. Thank you again for coming on. Thank you for allowing us to observe your traveling through hyperspace.
Oh yeah, no, it's been a whole lot of fun. Thank you very much for having me on your show. I assume it is video. I haven't seen you though, but maybe next time. And thank you very much for your consideration. Together we will ride our ponies into a zombie-powered future and everything like that. Everything like that. And don't forget to subscribe to my new TikTok channel, The Real Vermin Supreme on TikTok. Hey, kids! Ah! Yeah.
I got that recorded too, and that's going to be used somehow. We'll figure something out.
Awesome. All right,
Agora
take
pony
care.
action.
Have a real good night, and we'll catch you around, I hope. And
Yep.
All right.
Bye.
Peace out.
See ya.